So we know everybody up there. We know everybody up in GP. We're going to put something together. I can't stand it. See, here's something that me and GP have a lot of history with. GP's written down just like Red Deer. Now, I'm in Red Deer. The layout of the city, everything. I worked in GP for about 10 years. I worked down the Warehouser Road, Grand Cache, up north Beaver Lodge, Sexsmith, Dawson Creek. I damn near moved to GP. I was that close. My office was out of Valley View. So GP holds a special place in my heart. And I love Grand Prairie. Grand Prairie was the next oil boom town next to Estevan, Saskatchewan. And Grand Prairie, we did convoys up in Grand Prairie, if some of you Grand Prairie people remember. We had some of the largest convoys 4.5 years ago were up there. And the amount of support that came from that urged us to push these convoys across Canada. So I would like to get back up there to GP, show our support for everybody in Grand Prairie, and that'll be within the next coming days, or if not, early next week. That being said, I want to speak with all my convoy brothers and sisters about that, and I want to speak to Canadians in general across this country that are watching. Ladies and gentlemen, it's time for another convoy. It's time for another convoy to Ottawa, and I'm going to start getting this in the works. I want to get a hold of all my truck drivers that we all worked with on the trip. I want to get a hold of everybody who's got free equipment. If you're willing to provide, if we could provide drivers, we'll represent your companies again. We are going to do another nation-to-nation convoy. I promised Andrew Scheer, I promised Pierre Polyev, I promised Maxime Bernier, and I definitely sent the message to Trudeau the last time we were there. I said, the next time I have to come back here with a convoy, it's going to be a nationwide convoy.
I will be eternally grateful to the Freedom Truckers. Because
nobody in Parliament, nobody was standing up for us. No.
You've got these two groups of people who were not particularly involved in the formation of the convoy or much of the freedom movement in 2021.
Thank you so much, Phil. You're awesome for bringing the man, paying attention to what's going on. You've got your eye on the whole media of what's going on in Canada while you're able to hold a thread of what's happening in the U.S. and the rest of the world. You've got a great brain for this, bro.
A video clip surfaced from June of last year when he was running in his leadership campaign.
You have to be a member of the Conservative Party by Friday. So get your membership at my website, year4pm.ca.
No, you win. As soon as he's seen that, the whole telemetry of the situation changed out. All I can say is we need to find out what it is.
We
shot here.
I have one question.
Oh, yeah. Fire away. Yes. Yes. I haven't read it.
And here we have Pierre Poilievre standing in front of a Mason's symbol.
The mainstream media isn't picking it up. Why? The answer is very simple. Because the executives of most of the mainstream media deserve to go to prison.
I did not call people who were unvaccinated names.
What just happened? Did somebody just drop dead?
Druthers is Canada's largest, most loved, independent, people-powered newspaper. Now with over 8.5 million copies printed and distributed coast to coast by concerned Canadians like you. Please, donate, subscribe, volunteer, get involved. Together we can save this country. If you stand for freedom, go to www.druthers.net.
Wow, guys, can you hear me? It's hump day, December 18th, 2024. We got a hot show, a hot episode inbound. But listen, I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 guests in the wings. I'm going to slowly introduce each one of them and bring them on screen. And then we're going to watch a couple of Tamara Lich videos and talk about them. It should be pretty exciting. I got to tell you. So let me just say, if you're a first-time viewer and you're joining the show tonight, you probably are watching along with a fella named Patrick King. He's been advised that he'd really want to tune into this episode tonight, and I have a feeling he's one of, well, currently 29 viewers, but I expect that number to jump up rapidly as we go through this conversation. This intro that you watched, I detail 2 groups of people that were not particularly involved in the freedom movement prior to the convoy. You know, Jeremy McKenzie a little bit. He was definitely a voice out there. He was definitely making some noise about the Nova Scotia mass shooting and stuff like that. But he wasn't really a COVID activist too much. He had a show. He was making some noise. And there's that group of people, the Diagolonians, and then there's this other group of people. It was represented in the photo by a lawyer by the name of Keith Wilson. Tom Marazzo happened to be in the photo. I'm sure his name's going to come up tonight. But it was really more focused at Chris Barber and Tamara Lich. And people are troubled by this intro. What does he mean? Tamara Lich and Chris, they're the heroes of the convoy, aren't they? Aren't they the fucking heroes? That's what we've been told. Aren't they the ones that got the convoy off the ground? Well, I'm here to tell you no. And I'm going to bring on all the relevant witnesses. I've got many of them tonight, and I got more that want to join again, maybe tomorrow night. So I didn't go on the convoy, just, you know, full disclosure. I had multiple outstanding charges against me for my activism in Edmonton. I had a warrant out for my arrest for approximately 6 months. And I decided to barricade myself in my house in St. Albert. And I knew everybody that was going on the convoy. So I got involved in rebroadcasting. And I got involved in creating a repository. It's actually scrolling at the bottom of your screen here. You'll see a t.me/convoy 2022 photos and video. I was actually part of the official convoy group on Telegram. And I was part of that group up until January 26th of 2022. And something happened in January 26th of 2022 Tamara Lich announced on the GoFundMe that she was responsible for. I think it's mainly the main thing that she's going to be known for by the time this episode is done. She announced on the Convoy GoFundMe that Pat King was not a volunteer. He had nothing to do with the convoy, and he was persona non grata. And I made some noise about that, and they ended up kicking me out of the official Telegram group, but not before I established, there it is. It's right there. Well, it's right there. Convoy 2022 photos and video. I had 4,500 live users submitting videos in real time over 3 solid weeks. I'm going to bring that up during our conversation tonight. Let me start introducing our guests. Here's one that everybody will know. Let's, okay, hold on. I got to do some funky stuff here because of my microphone icon. Let's bring on Brigette Belton. This is Brigette Belton. Say hi,
guys.
Brigette.
Hi,
Brigette.
how's everybody?
Brigette Belton, if you didn't know, let's, here, let me do this. Okay.
I'm trying to get this shadow off my phone and it's not working. I'm sorry, guys.
Okay. We can see you great. We can see you really good, Brigette. So Brigette was a founding organizer and member of the convoy, along with, at least in my recollection, along with Pat King, Chris Barber, Joe Jansen. I think there was a few others. Did you want to mention their names?
Yes, absolutely. There's a lot of people that haven't been known. So Dale Enns, Ryan Mihalowicz, Dave Steenberg, Cindy. Sorry, Cindy, I forgot your last name. You're out there in Calgary. We've got Teresa out in BC. We've got Mike Benson. Did I say Dave Steenberg? Yes. Andrew Dieter from Cornwall. We've got a couple of ladies out in Nova Scotia. I'm sorry, Sonia, I believe.
Not to interrupt you, but I have to interrupt you. There's a lot of people that were involved, wasn't there? How many
Absolutely.
How many of those people got a helpful defense from lawyers? Sorry. How many of those people got help from Tamara's big shot lawyers as part of the Freedom Convoy? Did any of them get any help?
That's a joke, right? Like nobody gets help. Nobody gets help.
Hold that thought. Let me bring on some more people. All right. The next person we're going to bring on is I'm going to go with Mr. Chris Garrah. So Chris, if you're ready, get ready. I'm adding you to stage. This is Mr. Chris Garrah. Chris Garrah is a good friend of Mr. Chad Eros. He was featured in one of those clips in the intro. Chad Eros was actually the founder of Freedom Corp. We call it Freedom Corp. It's actually got a proper legal name. Chris is Chad's good friend, and he ran the Adopt a Trucker program, which was a fairly intensive program to house truckers in the Ottawa area. Chris, did you just want to come on and say hello and say a few words?
Yes.
You're on mute.
I just left a hockey game. It's snowing here in Ontario, and I just want to say hi to everyone. And yeah, we got some interesting stuff to talk about. Thanks for
We do indeed. Okay, the next fellow I'm going to bring on is Jason Laface. Jason, are you ready?
Yeah.
Mr. Jason Laface, welcome to the show. Now, Mr. Jason Laface, I know who he is because he was listed as a road captain for Northern Ontario in the documentation for Canada Unity. And Canada Unity was run by James Bowder. Jason had some involvement in that, along with another guy named Dana Melfi. Jason, do you want to say a few words, just kind of round out the introduction in terms of your involvement with the convoy?
Yeah, so basically helped organize key point stops in Northern Ontario with some other truckers that came on board, strategized with other organizers from Southern Ontario, and basically took care of all the data for the MOU that people signed and defended the Canada Unity brand that was under cyber attack.
Right. So just for our viewers at home, the MOU was the Memorandum of Understanding that was it was kind of spun in the Emergency Act inquiry as being like, a manifesto to overthrow the government. I think really what it was an appeal to Senate to somehow intervene in what was 385,000 and how many signatures?
11.
So 385,011 people signed this document, and basically this document was asking the Senate to intervene in what they viewed as illegal or unlawful orders contravening the Charter of Rights and a number of different conventions that were all quoted within the MOU. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay, and so you became the caretaker of those names. Perfect. I'm going to bring on our next guest, and we may have more join, but right now it's just Jody in the wings. Bring on Jody. Ms. Jody Ledgerwood, you may know her. She does the TFM report. That's the Fringe Majority report with her partner, Chris Vleck. And Jody, I know as well because she showed up when I was documenting all the goings on in the Ottawa convoy. She showed up at, sorry, what was the name of the food depot again?
The Coventry.
The Coventry Depot. And she was on a Laura Lynn live with Chris Garrah up here in his hockey jersey. And they were talking to Laura Lynn about the food donations that they were organizing, because all this food was being donated to the truckers and it needed to go somewhere, right? And so Coventry was one of those places. Jody, what else was your involvement in the convoy? I mean, can you summarize for us just in about 30 seconds?
Sure. I helped lead the Hamilton convoy into, I went as far as Cobourg, and then got into the Toronto convoy into Ottawa. I was the chef at the Swiss Hotel where the war room or command center was. I helped run the stage with Bethan Nodwell and Jason McDonald. I was also a speaker on the stage. So I wore many, many, many hats.
Okay, so now that the crowd is familiar with our guests, Dana Metcalfe, by the way, let me just put myself up. Okay, I got to get used to switching when somebody else is talking. Dana Metcalfe, that's Raven. I talked to her tonight. She was very interested in joining the show. Unfortunately, her mother had a stroke. She's on the way to the hospital, but she said she may join us tomorrow night. And we may do this again on Jody Ledgerwood's TFM report show tomorrow. What I'm going to do now with our panel here is we're going to play some videos. There was a couple fresh videos from Tamara Lich, one of which is a little trailer for a movie that they're fundraising for with a Give, Send, Go. It's called the Convoy, 2025 Convoy movie. Here we go. I'm going to bring this up and we'll all take this in. And then I'm sure there's going to be a flurry of comments that are going to come up out of this. I just have a feeling. Okay, hold on. Here we go. Add to stage. Here it is. Get ready, folks. Oh, of course it's muted. Let's try it again. And here we go. And it's still muted. Okay, start it over.
How has the arrest affected your life?
Tamara Lich! Tamara Lich! Tamara Lich!
All of us thought that when the trucks left Ottawa, that was going to be the end of it. But we didn't realize that was just the beginning. We made a promise, and going back to this trial is kind of poetic because I'm going back to fight again.
The blue-collar community has actually stood up, and look at what they've done to try and put us down. I really hope that they would listen.
Is there a reason that you can give as for why you will not have any negotiations with this particular group?
I have attended protests and rallies in the past when I agreed with the goals, when I supported the people expressing their concerns and their issues.
Never in a million years thought we'd be there 3 weeks and have not one single person even come to ask us a single question.
The federal government has invoked the Emergencies Act.
The police promised they would let them retreat peacefully. There's no leadership or they're intent on violence.
average Canadians had enough of the mandates, and they wanted somebody to stand up.
My strengths are logistics, organization, and administration. How can I help you?
And I took her up on that.
It was almost like a salvation.
Nobody in this convoy will be inciting violence or uttering threats. That is not what we are here to do.
Look at this, you guys. Oh my God.
I am an 8-year-old. We wanted to show our support again by providing you with some of our favorite snacks.
People that would come up and open the door and put bags of food in.
The small fringe minority of people who are on their way to Ottawa holding unacceptable views.
Oh my gosh. Look at this overpass.
Do not represent the views of Canadians.
Hello, fringe minorities.
I don't know if we'll ever forget this. We're fully supported to be here for as long as it takes.
We are in the jacuzzi making peace.
I walked those streets for 3 weeks straight. I seen the love.
I felt the truth and I saw the lies.
Honk honk, which is an acronym for Hail Hitler.
They started calling us names, racist, terrorists.
Russian actors could be continuing to fuel things.
The government and the media made all kinds of allegations against the protesters.
We were coming to rape and pillage.
There was an apartment building that was set on fire. Accusations that there were protesters planning to bomb the children's hospital, stealing food from the homeless. The truck drivers all had weapons in their trucks, and none of them were true.
This operation was able to proceed without death or serious bodily injury.
There was bodily injury to participants. We investigated for interference, and we did not see a threat to the security of Canada.
You didn't see any intelligence of sabotage or anything in support of sabotage.
That's correct.
He went down on his knees, put his hands behind his head, and then still gets beat up.
I was completely destroyed. I paid blood.
That hate comes from all the misinformation, the lies that were being fed to those police officers.
I want to go for a coffee. We see you again, it'll be different. Get out of here.
Two years ago, there was supposed to be a hockey game in Ottawa. That never happened because the Emergencies Act shut us down.
We've been busy on the defense, raising money.
Shaba and Jody come up and do the ceremonial puck drop.
Try not to stay up at night worrying about being in jail, but
No one gets left behind. We have to make sure that we have good representation, because now I've seen the difference between what a good lawyer can do and what a not so good lawyer can do.
How's your client feeling right now?
They just don't want people to ever protest against them again.
You have to understand that there's a lot of things at work here that need to prevent this from being a success.
This is my hill.
Hold the line.
Wow. What do you guys think of that? I mean, obviously there's something that's going to appeal to all of us in that particular footage, but I kind of cringe when I hear this nobody left behind idea. What do you think about that, Bridget? Were you consulted for this film, by the way, or?
Oh no, they've tried to erase me. They've done a really good job. You know, I mean, they took a 30-year-old Facebook page from me. I lost contact with family in Europe, and I didn't even find out when my cousin passed away until afterward. So, you know, they're really gem people here. But as far as nobody left behind, there's myself, there's Chris Garrah, there's Jason on here tonight. That's 3. There's 3 more in a $460 million lawsuit that they kicked us all out of having legal representation. And you like the part where she says, you know, you can pay good money for a good lawyer. How much money do you think truck drivers make? Like, how am I going to afford $450 an hour or $650 an hour for a good lawyer to defend something that these people put us into?
Bridget, were you I got to get used to doing this, the switching. And yeah, Bruce, I know my camera's blurry. I don't know what's going on with my Wi-Fi tonight, but anyways, it'll come around. Bridget, were you part of Freedom Corp? Did you have an official position on the board of Freedom Corp?
I was a member. I was voted in not once, but twice because they had issues. They couldn't remember if they did, couldn't remember if they didn't. When it was brought to my attention by Sean Thiessen that I wasn't on the board, I sent Tamara a message and she goes, "Oh, it's just an oversight." An oversight? Because when BJ asked her about it, she goes, "She'll find out at the annual meeting she's not on it," and shrugged her shoulders and walked away.
Okay, but you were at one point on the board.
I was voted in twice, and then I was kicked off by Chad Eros at the demand of Keith Wilson. I didn't believe that Keith Wilson was on the board or had anything to do with the board. But the message that I have that Chad shared with me is a direct order from Keith Wilson.
Isn't that interesting? And so in addition to that, other board members, people that were officially on the board, they were also excluded from legal representation. Do you know, can you speak to that directly, Bridget?
The other board members, are Chad. There's Chad, myself, Chris, BJ. Those were former board members that have no representation and no legal help. When Chris and BJ had sent their lawyer, Jim, now they weren't in the courtroom, but I was, because I was defending myself as a sole, defendant without a lawyer, right? So when I was in the courtroom, Mr. Mason for Freedom Corp had said that they did not want BJ and Chris to have access to $200,000 to defend themselves in the legal case.
Make sure you say Chris G, because people might get mixed up, think it's Chris Barber. Chris G.
Oh, no, Chris G. Chris Garrah, adopted trucker, couldn't have the money to defend himself because it was their money for their movement. Okay? That's like what? Wait a minute. So
that's in relation to Chris. Chris, do you want to come on and talk about that briefly?
It was pretty wild. Like I said, I started my Give, Send, Go before they even put one together because they were with the other fundraiser, which I don't even want to mention their name. And after, my Give, Send, Go was doing well. We were spending money, having a great time. Theirs was all frozen. So I said, why don't you switch over to Give, Send, Go? And they did. And again, we Adopted Truckers started a long time ago. We were taking care of Jody in the kitchen and making sure we were buying food for them and the truckers, and we were having a great time. But it came to a point where they thought the money was theirs, and you got to go even deeper. Keith Wilson and all the lawyers stopped us from getting money right from the very beginning. When they put that money into the trust, we all had 24 hours to get access to it. But they lied.
Chris, that's a different topic. Hold on.
We're going to get to that. I don't want to flood the audience with too much information too quickly. But basically, the story is here. Let me switch. So the story is, as told by Chad Eros and as well Chris Garrah. They just did a X Space on it today. They've done interviews with War Campaign. That's Rohan. A row of work campaign on this issue. Basically, what it comes down to is Tamara got access to some money. I've actually been authorized by Dana Metcalfe because Dana Metcalfe actually was shown Tamara Lich's phone at one of the command centers. So let me get this straight. There was two command centers in Ottawa. One was called ARC. The other one was the Swiss Hotel. Is that right?
Yes.
No, there were more.
There were more. Okay, so the two that I'm aware of, at least in context of the people that are in the room, Dana was at the ARC. Is that correct?
With myself, yes.
Okay, so Dana and Bridget were at ARC. Dana reports, and she's authorized me to quote her directly, this is Dana Metcalfe now, that Tamara Lich had shown her that she had actually obtained access to $120,000 in funds thereabouts, approximately, give or take, is the way Dana worded it. But Tamara showed her phone, and the first thing Dana said is, well, we should release these funds to the truckers. And what Dana said Tamara did next is, well, not until the lawyers come. I won't release any funds until the lawyers come. And the story so goes is that those funds were actually never released. The $120,000 was not distributed as far as Dana Metcalfe was aware. So that's just to put that one thing in perspective. I want to switch to Jason. Jason, on this idea of nobody left behind, what can you tell us? Have you been left behind?
Everybody did. All of us got left behind. And not only that, participants too. You know what I mean? Like we got people who are running around calling themselves the heroes and this and that. Fuck, they didn't do shit though. They actually didn't do shit. Tamara fucking was supposed to sorry my language, but Tamara, her role, which my understanding is the fundraiser. That's it. She didn't organize any logistics. She didn't organize Thunder Bay or get Yonkers to come in or correspond. Like in anything that I know that I did, she was never there. And everybody I know, maybe some Bridget can attest to this, and Chad or and Chris. You know, when people were trying to get a hold of us, or we tried to get a hold of her, she was a no-show, man. Especially in key moments where we really needed the help. She was nowhere. I'm sorry, but no, man.
Okay.
Leaving us behind. I'm pretty offended by that.
Next question is going to Jody Ledgerwood. Jody, my understanding, well, we heard in that video, we heard Chris Barber say that he spent weeks on the streets, but I'm told by eyewitnesses that were on the ground in Ottawa that they rarely saw Chris Barber and Tamara Lich, and that they were mostly holed up in the Arc Hotel. Can you speak to that, or?
I can't speak to whether they're at the Arc as I was at the Swiss, but I do know that Tamara was jumping from hotel to hotel. She said her life was being threatened, so she had to hide to keep safe. And I was pretty pissed at that because I'd been in the movement for 2 years at that point in time and had received many death threats. And yet I was still out there doing my thing and helping where I could help as she was hiding in hotel rooms. And then she ended up at the Swiss Hotel. And I know I questioned why she was here and why was I feeding her. I was already feeding approximately 80 to 120 people every single day for lunch and dinner. So to watch my numbers go up exponentially and then have to try and budget food and figure out how many more people I needed to cook for coming in off the streets, I was not happy that I now had this other dish, and we actually instituted a plate law. And I know that sounds really crazy, but anybody who was on my list was able to get a plate, and they had to come to me to get a plate. And I turned around and Tamara was eating, and I'm like, why is she eating? She's not on my list. And I was told, oh, well, you know, she's part of our team. And I said, no, she's not. She's not part of our team. She's part of the ARC team, and she is not on our list. So why is she eating at our table? Why am I feeding her when the ARC has their own money? They have their own budget. Our money is not near what the ARC's money is. So why am I feeding her? And I was told, well, you know, we're kind of all on the same team. And, you know, well, she's really afraid out there. So we're going to try and keep her safe here. And we've got to hold her up here where she can be safe.
Okay. Hey, Pat, we're swinging away for you, brother. We know you can't talk, but we're going to fucking swing away, my friend. So before we go too much further on this conversation about Tamara, let's roll into a little video that I've got set up for us here. This was Tamara Lich. My understanding is earlier today, or was this yesterday, at the European Parliament, maybe in a committee room with Christine Anderson. This was yesterday. Okay. Yes. So some of us have seen this, some of us have not seen this. Am I correct in making that assumption?
Correct.
Okay. Yes. Here we go. 10 minutes. This is Tamara Lich speaking to a foreign dignitaries. And what I want both the audience at home to note and our panelists is what she does say and what she doesn't say. And we're going to make some corrections at the end of the video. And then we're going to hammer away on what she didn't say. So, are you ready? You guys ready? Do I have my volume? It's muted. Here we go. No, and it's still muted. I don't know why that.
Thank you for inviting me here to speak today. And I'm very honored and humbled to be receiving your award tomorrow night. In the winter of 2022, I'm not going to get into obviously the specifics of the pandemic. I think we all have lived through that. A small group of us connected, and most of us strangers, didn't know each other, connected and decided to drive to Ottawa to protest the tyrannical and draconian COVID-19 pandemic mandates. As the rest of the world was beginning to open up and ease the restrictions, our Prime Minister started to double down. We were not allowed to leave the country. They were actually talking at that time about ceasing even interprovincial travel in Canada. So we decided to come together as a group, and we organized the Freedom Convoy from home. We started on the 14th of January, and 10 days later we were rolling to Ottawa. And we never could have imagined the support that we were going to receive. We honestly thought that we would just drive there, you know, a small group of us. But what we saw, obviously, as you guys probably did too, on the sides of the roads and the overpasses, was an overwhelming number of Canadians out there to support us, who finally felt hope for the first time in years, who finally felt proud to be Canadian for the first time in years, and who saw what we were doing as a light in the dark. As you know, the takedown of the convoy was something that I never could have imagined that I would see in my country. I grew up watching that stuff happen in third world countries. On the 6th of February, there was a raid at one of our outposts where we kept our supplies, and they had snipers on the roof pointed at hardworking, peaceful Canadians. They stole our fuel, they took our food, and it was, like I said, something that I could not have imagined that I would have ever seen before. We had politicians calling us terrorists, domestic terrorists, racists, even accusing us of trying to burn down an apartment building and insinuating that the truckers were rapists. This is not the Canada that I grew up in. What's happening now is unprecedented. Canada, in my opinion, used to be a very free country, unless I grew up very naive, but that's what I was taught. We were a democracy. And what we saw was not democratic. We had hundreds of thousands of people in Ottawa, and they still refused to talk to us. Within the span of 3 weeks, we received $24 million in donations. The first GoFundMe campaign that we started, which was taking in $1 million a day in donations as we traveled across the country, was frozen after the politicians contacted GoFundMe and told them that we were domestic terrorists and that they were funding terrorism. We then started a Give, Send, Go, and the donors donated even more money, about $12 million, just over $12 million at that time. And that was also taken from us, except for that there is a little bit of money. There's about $3.5 million that they froze that's sitting in an escrow account. How they treated those donations and how they treated us is how you would treat a drug cartel. In Canada, unprecedented. Our Prime Minister ran away and hid and refused to even send anyone out to talk to us. And as a matter of fact, he even said that he's attended protests before, but only those that he supports. In my opinion, the leader of a country leads all of their people, not just the ones who believe in the same ideology. That is his job, and he failed us. They all failed us. We tried to speak to lots of the MPs, and they all said no. I was arrested on February the 17th, thrown into solitary confinement. I called it the dungeon. Accused at that time, I had one charge. It was counsel others to commit the offense of mischief, which did not occur. A few weeks later, well, first of all, I was denied bail. We had a bail hearing and I was denied bail, which is quite something in Canada because murderers and rapists make bail. Most bail hearings last about 15 minutes. Mine lasted 2 days and cost usually about $50,000 in legal fees. So these are the people that we're dealing with. I spent 18 days in jail the first time I was arrested at the convoy. And I was rearrested in the summer of 2022 after attending a Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms Awards dinner where they honored me with their Freedom Award. And at that dinner, there was a photograph taken of me with one of the gentlemen that's on my no contact order. I'm under bail conditions still, 2.5 years later. However, there was lawyers all around us. Anyways, for the first time in Canadian history, there was a Canada-wide warrant issued for my arrest for the charge of mischief. Unprecedented. Absolutely unprecedented. 2 homicide detectives flew to Calgary to pick me up and fly me back to Ottawa because they don't have things, like murders to investigate. I spent an additional 30 days in jail and was also denied bail again, finally getting out 1 day before my youngest daughter's birthday. It was the most peaceful and polite protest of all time. There was no violence. The streets of Ottawa were cleaner than they'd ever been. We were feeding the homeless. We were clearing snow. We were cleaning up garbage. And this is how they treated us, because we did not agree with our Prime Minister's point of view. Currently, my co-accused, Mr. Chris Barber, who I rode across Canada with, and his son in his truck, and myself are still going through the longest mischief trial in history. We just finally wrapped up the evidence portion in this fall, and we're still waiting for our verdict, which we're expecting on March 12th. The Crown Prosecutor in our case is seeking 10 years in prison for mischief, which would be akin to spray painting the side of a building in most places. In the meantime, there are people getting out on bail all the time. There's a catch and release in Canada unless you are me, apparently. They're arrested for violent crimes. In the first 2 months of our trial, the Ontario Provincial Court threw out 125 cases in order to prosecute ours. And of those, some of them were violent and sexual assaults. And they tossed them out in order to proceed with our prosecution, or as I like to say, our persecution. This is the current state of Canada. Right now, we are facing censorship of our media. Well, our mainstream media has been completely bought and paid for. They will never come out and question the Prime Minister. We are facing, just like other countries, censorship, online censorship bills to stop.
I'm just going to stop her just for a sec. I don't want to break into a huge conversation, but I heard about a little clandestine group that maybe Tamara was involved with, that maybe her lawyer was chairing this clandestine group, and said clandestine group was used to silence other freedom fighters. I'll just keep playing it and let you think about that for a minute. Oh, of course it mutes.
This is the current state of Canada right now.
Mm-hmm.
And we need help. We need help. We've got a big road ahead of us, but I know that there's a lot of us that are committed to continue to fight because they don't scare me. They do not define my freedom. They can put me in jail. That doesn't mean I'm not free. I define that. So we're still fighting, and I'm totally anticipating that we will get a not guilty verdict in March. However, that said, the Crown prosecutors in all of the Freedom Convoy cases are appealing most of them. I only know of one case where they have not appealed a stay or a not guilty verdict. We're also being sued civilly for $300 million from a group in Ottawa who were upset about the honking horns.
Hold on. Put up your hands right now if you're part of that $300 million suit. Oh, and she's not helping you guys, is she? Okay, just had to check. Oh, why does it keep muting?
$300 million. Lawfare is alive and well in Canada, and I never would have imagined that I would see it. To date, the taxpayers of Canada have paid over $5 million for this prosecution, and Chris Barber and myself have incurred over $750,000 in legal fees. And we're just very fortunate that we have some organizations, charitable organizations, that are helping us fund our case. Because I'm not a millionaire, but this is what they're trying to do. All over the world, too, not just in Canada, I see it everywhere. It's to demoralize and bankrupt you.
Yeah, hold on. There's still like 16 seconds left, but I can't even contain myself. They let Pat King rot. He had to raise his own funds for his own lawyer. Who's the guy doing the commentary? Ross, hi, this is Phil right here. They let Pat King fucking hang on his own. They kicked him overboard January 26th of 2022. And she's complaining about how it's making her bankrupt. She's got the fucking keys to how many millions of dollars? 22+ million missing Bitcoin. Oh, there's the 120,000 that she was able to cash out before they froze the fucking GoFundMe. Oh, okay, hold on. 18 more seconds. Let's hear her. Oh, and it's fucking muted again.
They picked on the wrong woman.
You picked on the wrong woman.
Thank you.
Okay, that's brave and bold. I got to take the mic just for one more second, and then I'm going to turn it over to the panel because I'm sure the panel's got plenty to say. I wasn't even at the convoy. And I'm this fucking angry with this woman. Here's what I'm going to say. She skipped over the COVID stuff. Oh, they might send me to jail. Oh, they're suing me for hundreds of millions of dollars. No person left behind, even though I've got all those people here and a few watching and a few that'll want to join tomorrow night to talk about this too. What she didn't mention, and this is just me, if I'm going to fucking jail, if I think I'm going to jail for 10 years for mischief on account of the Freedom Convoy, and I've got the ears of foreign politicians, here's what I would say. And I don't know what my panelists would say, but this is what I would say. There's treason identified in our House of Commons. There's 11 traitors. They've been colluding with the Chinese. Wuhan and Winnipeg Lab were involved in an Anthony Fauci scheme to gain a function, fucking the coronavirus, and our government's involved. And I stood up and spoke against it. They got to name the names. We got to get to the bottom of it. Did she say any of that? Did anybody on this, anybody help me out? Did you hear those words come out of Tamara Lich's mouth?
Nope.
Now, she's connected with some pretty fantastic politically connected people. So just before I turn it over, one more thing. I just got to pull up a different screen here. Give me 1 second, because I got the dirt on all of these players involved in who was involved in bringing her there, who's involved in setting up Christine Anderson. I know there was a question in comments. How did Christine Anderson get roped into this? Oh, we'll show you. I got it all. I got all the deets. Well, first of all, let me start with this, and I will bring up the screen for this. Eva Chipiuk and Bethan Nodwell have been reported by Dana Lee Melfi. Are you guys all familiar with Dana Lee Melfi?
Yes.
Okay. He's known as Peaceman.
Yes.
Peaceman reached out to me last Christmas. I haven't spoken to him since last Christmas, but I spent 2 solid hours communicating with him, and he informed me that they have a quote unquote, let me bring myself up for this, a quote unquote clandestine group named by Eva Chipiuk and Bethan Nodwell, formed on the internet, involving Chris Barber, Tamara Lich, Chris Dacey, Shadow Davis, Jason Levine, Anita Peterson, Those are some of the ones that I recognized when he showed me the list. He actually showed me the group and the communications. And what he further did was inform me that they've been communicating in secret, using it as a loophole, number one. But number two, more importantly, that they were using it to collude to shut down other freedom fighters that weren't following along with their narrative. And there's many of us that have had something to say about this whole Tamara Lich and Chris Barber herodom, because it isn't fucking true. They threw Pat King under the bus, a lot of us along with him, and one by one just started knocking people off. And then they have the nerve to try and do this Convoy movie that they're fundraising for. They have the nerve to go and say, oh, no man left behind, when they've clearly left multiple people behind. And so we're here to inform the public about this. Now, let's start with Bridget. Bridget, you just watched that 10-minute display. What are your initial thoughts?
I've posted it everywhere. She's a damn liar. She doesn't even know what day the convoy started. The 14th? That's the day she entered. That's not the day it started. I have the message from Chris Barber on January 2nd, where he agrees to work with me, where he agrees to the convoy, and where he also says, but convoys never work. And afterwards, after the convoy, when we were home, I said, are you willing to eat some crow now, Chris? And he said, why? The convoy didn't work. So you want to be pissed off about something? This guy's raking in millions of dollars, and he doesn't even believe in what happened in Ottawa. Are you kidding me? These people are just bottom feeders. It's so cringe. I have never seen anything like it. After Convoy, I thought, did I just jump into like one of those conspiracy theory movies? You know, like this is just unreal. I have never seen anything like it in my whole life. I feel like I've been sucked into the political class and I don't like it. And Tom Marazzo himself had told me in a phone call that Tamara was backed by George Soros. And I was like, what? So I tried to confirm it because my recording didn't work properly. And I said to him, George who? I'm sorry, I didn't get the last name right for my notes. And he goes, I didn't say that. And I said, yeah, George Soros, W-E-F Soros. He goes, I didn't say that. And I said, then what, George? And all he did was give me a thumbs up. These people are all in it together. And I hate to say it, but I believe that Harold Yonkers is not just naive. He ran for the Heritage Party 3 times. He's been in politics for a while.
Okay, let me switch to Jody. Jody, what are your comments or thoughts on this recording that we just heard of Tamara talking to the European Parliament and Christine Anderson?
I'm not a fan of liars. For one, if you're going to claim you did something, then I certainly hope you did it. And there's enough of us that were in Ottawa that were on the team prior to going to Ottawa, on the team at Ottawa, and on the team after the convoy split up. Tamara was not out on those streets. She was not shoveling snow. She was not handing out food to anybody. In fact, she was hiding in hotel room after hotel room after hotel room, sitting there eating the food I was cooking. And that was not out on the street. The things she likes to take accolades for, she didn't do. She didn't even come into the convoy on the first meeting of the convoy, the first Zoom meeting where we all vetted each other. She was not there. She wasn't on the second meeting and she wasn't on the third meeting. In fact, she didn't come in till the 4th or 5th meeting is when she came in, and all she wanted to take part in was the money. She didn't care about organizing for the truckers once they got to Ottawa. She didn't care about organizing the routes that the truckers came. She didn't care about anything except running that that GoFundMe. That was all she ever talked about, was the money, the money, the money. She didn't care about the truckers, didn't care about the routes, didn't care about how we were going to get there. All she cared about was how much money she could rake in. That was it. So when she sits there at that EU table, being put up for this Nobel Prize for, Freedom Fighter of the Year award. Where was she? Because she definitely wasn't fighting for freedom on the streets like everybody else. She wasn't freezing her ass off in minus 30 degrees temperature. And every interview she's done since then, I've only caught one or two because I cannot stand to hear the lies. It just riles me up. But when they ask her, so Tamara, what do you think is next? What do you think's coming down the pipe? What are people fighting for? She can't even answer that question. A real freedom fighter knows exactly what's going on. And like you said, why isn't she calling out the traitors? Why isn't she calling out the carbon tax? Why isn't she calling out the Chinese influence in our house? Why isn't she calling out
a Muppet.
the green slush fund? There is so much wrong with our country right now that people are standing up for. And why isn't she calling out all those vaccine injuries? She's got a microphone in front of her face all the time. How about give those victims?
Oh, wait.
Okay, so in fairness,
she is doing the vaccine injury with Bikers Church and Chris. But wait.
She did some for Dan Hartman, and we'll give her that credit. But
Justice for the vaccinated was started in 2022. Did she jump on the train? Did she lend her voice? Did Chris Barber lend their voice so that we could raise money as we were helping the vaccinated and doing the tours and collecting their stories? Hell no, she wasn't.
But Jody, give me a second. Give me 2 seconds. I'm going to prove you right completely. One of the groups that is in that vaccine injury group that they were promoting on there, it supported giving more vaccines of COVID-19.
Yes.
So she doesn't even know what she's promoting. She's just putting her face on stuff to get a paycheck. That's it.
Anything she can collect money for, she seems to have a voice for. But anything that is actually fighting for Canadians, she's nowhere to be found.
Right.
And she can't even talk about it when somebody asks her what's wrong in Canada.
Right. So I mean, that's the main takeaway, at least on the Lich file. We're going to get to Barber. We're going to get to some of these other characters. But Lich is basically just been a Muppet from the beginning. She took this GoFundMe thing. So let's talk through. Bridget, first of all, pointed out that she said that it all started on the 14th. Well, actually, it didn't. In fact, if I was to have played the short show intro for this show, it has a December 15th show with Benita Peterson, Cody Kuntz, Selena Paley, and another guest from Grand Prairie, and I just don't recall her name, which is why I'm not saying it. That happened on December 15th on Edmonton Freedom Central. That's that logo up in your top right-hand corner, folks. On Edmonton Freedom Central, Pat King announced the convoy. The intent to get all of the old truckers from the United We Roll convoy is the way I took it. All the truckers from the United We Roll, which he had a part in, he was going to get in contact with all of those people, and it was time to have a convoy to Ottawa. That was December 15th, 2021.
And the date landing was February 14th, not the date that we landed. It was a different convoy. Yes.
Okay. So now what ended up happening is Chris Barber put out a video on January 3rd, and it was also a call to do a convoy. And Pat aired that on his channel. And what I recall, so there was two sets of meeting groups that were happening. One was happening in the public eye.
Ours, yeah. Maybe both. Maybe both were happening in the public eye.
Hold on.
No, the Zooms I were on were private Zooms.
So there was two groups. There was what was going on in the public, and that was being aired on Pat King's channel. And then there was the Zoom meetings, which was happening in the background.
Yes.
So Jody, tell us about the very first Zoom meeting that you went to. How did that go? Who was chairing it? Who was there? Was Tamara there?
No.
Tell us about that.
Tamara was not there. Bridget was there. Pat King was there. Bader was there. There was four of them that were basically running the meeting. So I didn't know who was running the meeting. There was four people that were running the meeting. And the meeting was basically vetting everybody that was on the call. And there was probably about 30, I think there was about 34 of us on the call. And we all said who we were, where we were from, and what we'd been doing in the last 2 years in the freedom fight. It was a way to vet and make sure that the people that were there were actual leaders and people who are willing to take action and had been taking action. So that was the first call. The second call, we vetted the new people that came in, and we talked about what we were going to do, what was the purpose behind it, the goal, and started talking about routes and who was where that would be willing to step up and be a road captain for that route and help reach out to other people to join the convoy and get maps out to those routes. The third meeting, we brought up again the routes, and then we talked about money and how we were going to afford to do this. The fourth meeting, we talked about only money. And the fifth meeting was only money. And it was either the fourth or the fifth meeting when Tamara Lich finally showed up, and all she wanted to do was talk about money and how she could run a GoFundMe, because she's run GoFundMes before. So she knows how to do it, and she knows how to get money raised. She'll be the front runner on the money. And then the next meeting, it was all about the money and how they were going to spend the money and what they were going to do about the money, because they had set a goal of $250,000 was the first goal. And we were all like, I don't know if we're going to reach that. And sure enough, we reached that within a first hour or two, I think, of it running. We hit that. So then we started increasing the thing. But the third, fourth, and fifth meeting,